It is that time again. Eugene Melnyk has spoken, and as such, it's video time. It's early in the morning. There's only 2 games tonight, so I figured I don't need to do my board. I was going to do the board this morning and have some fun with it. So that's coming, but yeah. So Mr. Melnyk has spoken again, and right off the bat, I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of the stuff that's going to make Leaf fans have a good giggle. And I read it and went, what? And I was alerted to it via Twitter, via the Sean Avery account. It's not really Sean Avery, of course. But it's what we all recognize him as on the channel. And I recognize him as on Twitter. And yeah, this is interesting. So Eugene Melnyk starts with talking about the key of moving forward. And where he loses me is when he says, we're identifying the real fans. So he points out that there was a very outspoken critic of the Senators and all this, and he goes, and it turns out it was a 12-year-old from Toronto. Okay. So you were bested by a 12-year-old from Toronto, or? It seemed odd. And then he says here, for our fans that are real fans, we're doing the best that we can. All we could do is keep doing what we've been doing. We've had a great record for the past 15, 16 years. We've gone to the Stanley Cup finals. We've gone to the conference finals. We've had all-star games. We've had drafts. We've had outdoor games. We're doing everything more than most franchises as far as what we do for our fans. That's not really true. I'm not saying that the Senators don't do things for their fans, but to say we're doing more than most franchises, I don't think so. And to say, well, everything's going great. That's what drives me nuts with Melnyk, is how he's kind of like, everything's going great, I don't know what they're talking about. And then there's the no true Scotsman fallacy, is what it's called. And it's one of these silly things where no true Scotsman would wear a kilt and have, briefs on underneath. You go regimental. That's one of those Scottish things that you'd hear, no true Scotsman. And it can go to a silly degree. No true Scotsman would use a rake. He just, like, this is the thing, right? So it's called a fallacy because it's not true. So one thing, and it gets thrown at me every now and then, is that if I criticize a team that I cheer for, I'll hear, well, no true fan would criticize a team like that if they cheer for it. And my answer is absolutely they would. That's just the way that works. But it's something that people do, and it happens a lot online where people will say, well, you don't truly believe that then, because, what you just said proves you don't actually believe that other part of whatever we're arguing about. And so as soon as he says, well, true Senators fans, he loses me. Which ones are true Senators? How do you tell? How do you tell? Do they have a brand new jersey, or did they have an old jersey sitting with Mark Borowiecki in a studio talking about dumpster fires? And then, and then it gets into what happened less than 2 years ago. Now, okay, here's another quote from here. Usually people get upset with the general manager, with the kind of record we've had, or with coaches. But in what we did as far as calling for a full rebuild, it's highly unusual in any sport, because a general manager would not necessarily do that. He can't. He has to come to his owner and say, by the way, what I've been doing for the past 5 years, I've wasted all this money trying to build something. I did not succeed, and we have to do a complete rebuild. Now imagine an owner listening to that and saying, what have you been doing for 5 years? In this case, it's the best thing for us to do. We had a good team, but you don't get participation badges in the NHL. You either win or you don't. So he's saying, look, we went to the conference finals, we went to the Stanley Cup finals, but I did a rebuild because that doesn't matter. That's how it comes across. Now, does he mean that? Nah, probably not. But there's some doublespeak in here, which is, he came to me and said we have to do a rebuild. But you didn't want to spend the money either. So at some point, he went to Dorian and said, I'm spending all this money. Where's my Stanley Cup? And that's not really how it works. We saw that earlier this season in Dallas with Jim Lights, where Jim Lights was like, hey, we're spending all this money. And Sagan and Ben are making a lot of it. And what are they doing with it? And I'm really paraphrasing and cutting out all the swearing and cursing that took place in that interview. Now, Ottawa and Dallas, it's a bit of a different situation. Dallas understands that, they've got to stay in playoff contention. They don't want to waste the best years of their players. Melnyk wants to trade their best players and then argue that that's for the best of the team. Let me just go ahead and load the other one up. Oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and stay with this for a second, because there's two different things going on here. Yeah. To win a Stanley Cup, I believe you have to have 4 or 5 superstar types all around the same age in their mid-20s at the most. And a very, very hot top flight goalie. You need veterans, and we have several of them left and will continue to have. Melnyk and Dorian have repeatedly praised veterans and homegrown players like Jean-Gabriel Pageau, Mark Borowiecki, and Cody Ceci as the leaders of the locker room. Brady Tkachuk has been a bright spot on the NHL roster as of Thomas Chabot and Colin White. Melnyk made it clear there's plenty more promise currently developing in the AHL affiliate in Belleville. The owner pointed out the team currently possesses 17 draft picks within the first 3 rounds over the next 3 years. They can also be traded up for all sorts of things, including other prospects. The whole objective is 3 years out that we have a true Stanley Cup contender, and that we don't have the gaps that some people have, some teams have, and that we can stay within the cap. We know that the cap is going to, well, we know what the cap is going to be, but my worry is that we're going to start bumping into that if you have 5 or 6 seasons that you're going to be paying $10 million, so $10 million to, so it's a matter of looking forward to do that. Yeah, now I'll load up the other one. Actually, let's talk LeBreton Flats. This is from a separate article. He's doing so well. He's making the media rounds. Isn't it wonderful? If you're an Ottawa fan, you're like, oh crap, make him stop. But if you favor Melnyk out, you're not a true Senators fan. You don't see the plan here. He's smarter than all the other teams. He's going to get rid of absolutely everybody, and that's going to make it a team that everybody else wants to come to, but not if they're 26 or older, because then you're an old fart. Now he talks about LeBreton Flats, and he says, it's dead as far as the process is concerned. They're now talking about all sorts of different machinations of things, and they're looking at dividing it into 6 little projects. I think it's very fluid right now, especially in election year. If there's an opportunity there, we'll listen to them. At this point, we're not in any hurry. I'm still trying to pursue it, but if it doesn't happen, I'm just happy to stay in Canada and do what we're doing out there, and actually expand upon what we're doing and what we have. I'm gonna wait until Senators fans stop yelling about the idea of staying in Canada, because that's been a major point of contention, is that the arena isn't anywhere near downtown Ottawa. We have a significant amount of land around the arena that if we wanted to, we could develop, but LeBreton was an opportunity that we tried to do something with the city and the NCC, and it didn't work out. We have to continue and move on to something that can showcase the team for the future. At the end of the day, the economics just didn't work. You had your own partner proposing to build some 60-story monstrosity. That may work in New York City, barely in Toronto, never mind in Ottawa. I thought it was crazy, and it sucked out any opportunity for LeBreton to sell any real estate in there. At the end, it was so hot, so twist and turned. It was almost like a corrupted process. The whole thing stunk, and I said, "Get me out of here. This isn't going to work. Next time we do this, we're going to do it our way." The management that brought this on is no longer with the company. We'll do it in a much more structured way with the right partners. We make success out of a new arena in Ottawa. It's just a matter of getting the right people to do it. So he wasn't happy because they were putting up a 60-story building. Is that like a legit reason to say, fine, I'm not going to put my arena there? I'm honestly asking a question. I'm not trying to be sarcastic right now. I honestly don't understand that's what was the straw that broke the camel's back. I've had a few people come forward, developers, and asked to partner up with them because it's a huge attraction. When you put an arena somewhere, you have all the opportunities to build around it, and that's very appealing to any decent developers. So now, if you go, that's a dumb idea, you're not one of the decent developers. I get the feeling that it devolves into name calling pretty quick with Eugene Melnyk. That, he's your buddy and everything's great, and you're like, hey, Eugene, why did you paint your house green? Why'd you paint your house green? No, I'm just asking a question. Well, I'm just asking a question. I don't know. Why don't you just get off my property if it's not good enough for you? No, I'm just asking. I'm just asking a simple question. Yeah, well, I'm just telling you, You can go. You can go. I don't see how this is going to work. How's what going to work? I don't understand. You have to have the right partner, someone that's substantially bigger and that's much more organized. That's the only way I would do it going forward. Melnyk said he knows Ottawa fans aren't happy with him. He says he has to ignore the noise because he's not sure where the criticism is coming from. Oh, and here it is. We tripped up one of those guys. Oh yeah, key for us is to identify who are Senators fans and who are not. We tripped up one of those guys, or somebody did, and it turned out it was a 12-year-old in Toronto who was upset with the Senators in general. I'm a high-profile person, so I'm an easy target. Let them do what they want to do. I basically ignore 99% of it. For our fans that are real fans, we're doing the best we can. All we can do is keep doing what we've been doing. And there it is, yeah. So now it goes into the same quote from the other article. Yeah, and that's from Bruce Garrick and the Ottawa Sun. Now I need to load up the one that's going to be really fun. So again, he's been doing the media rounds, and what does he do? He targets the Toronto Maple Leafs. You know, it's not enough that you've got Toronto fans that drown out the Ottawa fans when you're playing in Ottawa. Here we go. So yeah, he said you don't do a rebuild with a short-term view. You've got to have, and it's tough in sports, a 5-year outlook, and if you don't do all the things right, all you're doing is patching up. I know a team that have been doing that. I know a team that you know that's done it for 53 years, he said, referring to the Maple Leafs. Okay. Brendan Shanahan's only been with this team a short period of time. I am really tired of people saying, oh, look at the Maple Leafs, doesn't work for them. Look, okay, we can have that discussion if 5 or 6 years from now the Leafs haven't done anything. The fact is, they've got a pretty damn solid team right now, and they're pretty well managed. So, when I hear 53 years, and especially coming from Melnyk, this team hasn't won squat since they came back into the league either in 91. So, and you could say, well, they've gone to the finals. Yeah, once. And then what? Conference finals, Toronto's been there plenty of times. So, again, they've been selling out, but all they do is they've been patching up. Finally, they collapsed the team and said, we've got to rebuild. But mistakes were made, and somebody forgot about defense. She's talking about the current roster. The next 6 months are going to be critical for Pierre and his team and this whole operation staff to get their act together in a big way to be able to use those assets. All 17 picks we have in the first 3 rounds for the next 3 years, plus all of the other prospects. The core group that's sitting in Belleville and playing up already are going to stay. And yes, they're all going to need those big contracts, and I'm prepared to step up for that. Whether we get support at the attendance or not, I'm going to do this because it's something I'm committed to, and we intend to win a Stanley Cup, and I don't have another 50 years to do it. So they talk about the cap crunch that's potentially coming for Toronto this summer. I had nothing to do with it. Toronto fans get mad when I talk about that. I just saying what's going on. They're going to have a tough time winning a Stanley Cup without defense, he said. They're hitting the cap. They can't bring anyone new. They're stuck. And that's where you have to be extremely careful. The Senators have something like 17 draft picks. He keeps saying it. Plus everything we have in Belleville. Plus. And then they talk about how the Senators sit last in the NHL. Uh-huh. And all the star players that they've just let go. Just gone. They're just all gone. And he says, I think we did a terrible job in communicating exactly what the plan is in a rebuild. And when you rebuild, unlike others, you may have seen people just say, hey, we're going to rebuild and try to... It's just more show than substance. In our case, it's extremely rare for a team to say, you know what, everybody's out. Do you know why, Eugene? Because it makes it really unattractive for other veterans to say, I want to go there. I want to go to that team that said, everybody out. It's not a bloody pool. We need a team that's consistently young. He doesn't understand how time works if he wants that. We need a handful of veterans to take them through some of the rough patches they'll go through to grow into being NHL players. Our average age in 3 years is going to be 23 to 24. It's going to be the youngest team, and I'm hoping to have a 5 or 6 year run with these players. A lot of people were really upset about us trading away the 3 in the end. Duchesne, Stone, and Dzingel. And if you think about it, they're all looking for 7, 8 year contracts at the age of 27 and anywhere from $8 to $10 million a year. You think about it, 5 or 6 years from now, they're all going to be in their almost mid-30s, like 33, 34. Didn't stop Vegas, did it? Mark Stone wants 8 years. He gets 8 years. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Ryan Dzingel was not asking for 7 or 8 years and $8 to $10 million. I'm just going to hazard a guess. Now, Stone, maybe, sure. Um, so Duchesne, you might be able to get him for 6. And Stone, yeah, he wanted 8 years. And that's Ottawa. While Ottawa's balking at the price, Vegas is going, yeah, we'll do that. And then the question you ask yourself, it's not just simply, well, we're going to get younger. Are you going to get better? And that's the question that I don't think he really has an answer to. You can go and get all the prospects in the world, but unless you have a plan, that's all you have. And when you look at teams that have done a rebuild, it doesn't take 3 years to go from the bottom of the league to a contending position without a plan, or unless the team that's finished at the bottom of the league dramatically underachieved. I think of Colorado a couple of years ago as a good example of this. And Ottawa's not in that position. So that just gets me, yeah. You're going to have all these kids coming up. We have 8, actually 9, 10 if you include the goalie. 10 potential stars sitting in Belleville. And they're playing, and they're playing their hearts out, and they want to make the NHL. We're hoping for is that out of that group we have 3 or 4 stars, real stars. Melnyk said in February he expects the team's rebuild to last another season or 2. When his general manager believes the team has all the foundational pieces in place, he plans for the Senators to spend close to the NHL's salary cap. Sorry, I had to pause because I had a sneezing fit. You know, my old job, I used to have sneezing fits every now and then on the assembly line. And I'd say, I'm sorry, I'm allergic to BS. It's an allergy I have. Now, it talks about how the team has added promising prospects over the past year, like Vitaly Abramov, Rudolph Balcers, and the centerpiece of the Stone deal, defenseman Eric Brandstrom. Now, I've talked up Brandstrom, but let's go back. The Leafs have done the rebuild wrong. They're 6th overall. And I get it. There's a lot of people who want to say, oh, well, look at their defense. And I've said it myself. I do have questions about whether or not Toronto, as soon as this summer, are going to be able to keep a contending team together. They're a contending team right now in my eyes. And they have a lot of the pieces you need if you want to win a Stanley Cup. But and being young is one of those things. But they also have some pretty good veteran players. And while their defense takes a lot of flack, they're not a horrible defense. So to say, somebody forgot about defense. Yeah. Do you have a Morgan Riley? You don't. You don't. So, that's a problem right there. And then to say, well, we don't want to be giving 26, 27, 28-year-old players 8, 10-year deals, or 7 or 8-year deals. Okay, fine. I don't think those are going to be a big problem starting this summer. I would imagine a lot of players are going to take 5 or 6-year deals. But you still have to be an attractive destination for free agents. And there's an oversimplification that goes on when Eugene Melnyk talks about this stuff. And he has said it often enough that I think he really believes it. I think he really believes that they've figured something out that no other team would have thought of. When I've said before, doing a full teardown is dangerous. There is no guarantee you're going to be able to rebuild it. And you can't rebuild it quickly. Ottawa's going to be very interesting to watch this summer because Melnyk right here is saying, well, I'm not spending money. Okay, so next year the team's going to be crap too. Now, he keeps talking about draft picks, and yet what we don't talk about is how they don't have their number 1 draft pick this year, and that could have been Jack Hughes. And that very well could be the package going towards Colorado. The weird thing to me is that at the time they make the Duchesne trade a year and a half ago, they've basically declared, we think we're in this, we think we're a good team, we think we're capable of getting that step further. And I remember Pierre Dorian at a press conference and Duchesne's 95 Senators jersey, all decked out, and they're all like, all right, here we are. This is us. It's gonna be great. And now it's less than a year and a half. And the way that Melnyk's talking about it, you would think that this was part of the plan going back at least that far. What's happened is it's all turned into a disaster. And rather than handle it like most teams would, they've just said, oh, we'll just get rid of everybody. No. You have to have veterans to anchor the team. I would think that Erik Karlsson would have been fine staying in Ottawa through a rebuild. Not only that, but having Erik Karlsson on the back end, you're going to get about 65, 70 points at his worst if he's healthy. And you've got Thomas Chabot, who is an excellent defenseman in his own right, who can definitely become an even better defenseman under the tutelage of Erik Karlsson. Up front, I think Stone would have stuck around. I think Stone talked to them right up until the end. Then you've got an anchor up front. Like, I get where he's saying, well, you have these guys when they're 33, 34 making all this money. Yeah, that's what happens. That happens a lot. And there are some of these contracts that these young players, who, and I still think at 25 or 26, you're young. These guys are getting contracts that, yeah, when they're 33 or 34, teams are going to be looking to trade them. But to say, well, we're going to take a long-term approach instead of a short-term, but they took a short-term approach with the Duchesne trade, and it blew up in their face. And so, again, I look at this organization, and I'm floored at the things that he says. And to come out and say, well, that rebuild, that one sucks, when the Toronto rebuild is further along in less time than it's taken for the Buffalo rebuild, the Edmonton rebuild. There are other teams. Carolina's has taken over a decade. So it's easy to point at Toronto and go, look at them. All they have is Matthews and Marner and Tavares and Freddie Anderson and Morgan Riley and Nylander. And we've got Brandstrom, who's going to be excellent. He's had a game in the NHL, and we're really excited about what this kid might be able to do. Like, you've got to understand, like, this looks ridiculous. But again, I really think Melnyk believes all this. I really believe Melnyk's sitting there in a chair somewhere watching Toronto Maple Leafs games going, this team isn't going to win anything. They're sitting with a measly, what do they have, like 94 points or 91 points? We can do that in a couple of years. We'll be fine. We'll be great. Because again, the problem is if you're just going to go with prospects, it's not going to work. And to praise those 2 or 3 veterans that you've decided you're going to keep, guys like Borowiecki and Pajot, and I get it. They're good workhorses for them. Yeah, I don't see how this is going to get better. Let me know what you guys think regarding the comments of Eugene Melnyk yesterday and today. The man is he's mad, and I don't mean mad like angry. I mean crazy. But again, is he crazy like a fox? Does he have a plan that we're all underestimating? What do you guys think about his statements today, and do you agree with a lot of Senators fans who think he needs to stop talking? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happen upon this video, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.